How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 2.
Hello there. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here. The phone number is 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program, I would be very happy to have you. Now, I must continue to talk about these cabinet picks. I want to say something. Let me play for you Kathleen Sebelius. Didn't know she was still alive. She was Barack Obama's Health and Human Service Secretary. She was on with Jen Psaki on MSNBC. Listen to this conversation as they sound the alarm over Robert Kennedy Jr.
So again, sitting over CDC, correcting or trying to actually harness the communications from CDC, make them in correspondence with what he believes, putting up fake science against real science and saying to people, just make up your own minds, I think could lead to disaster. Public health, a major tenet is clear and factual communication over and over and over again. We saw during COVID, Jen, what happens when the president, Donald Trump, would contradict science from the podium, undercut vaccine enthusiasm, say that maybe drinking bleach or various kinds of remedies that were used in veterinary animals should be used in human beings, none of which was backed up by science, but it created an atmosphere of mistrust and distrust. So,
okay, one more clip. Sorry, one more clip. Bear with me. There's a point here. There's a point. Where is it? Elise Slotkin, the senator-elect. She's a congresswoman from Michigan. Her congressional seat flipped to the GOP, but she got the Senate seat. Listen, she's on ABC talking about Pete Hegseth.
I mean, I think in general, I'm a senator-elect, and advice and consent from the Senate is part of our constitutional process. So I'm going to try and meet with everybody, hear them out. But I also am a former CIA officer and Defense Department official. I know just how important these jobs are, not just for who gets what in Washington, but for the actual security of people in the United States. And, you know, I was one of the first employees of the DNI's office. I worked at the Pentagon. And so to me, you have to have the right character. You have to have the right qualifications. You have to go through an actual vetting process. To me, that is the thing that is going to be critical in deciding who should be supported as these big cabinet level officials.
Okay, one last one. Mark Wayne Mullen, I will give him, the senator from Oklahoma, can bring us exactly to the point where we need to go in this conversation. This is Mark Wayne Mullen on Meet the Press on NBC.
But I do got a question for you. The Democrats are spending so much time talking about the scrutiny of President Trump's picks, and yet did we spend this amount of time scrutinizing Biden's pick? I mean, we can talk about Rachel, the Assistant Secretary of HHS. I think that's a pretty controversial pick from whatever pronoun he or she decides to use. We talk about Sam, the Assistant Secretary or Executive underneath Energy of Secretary of Energy, and the individual was arrested multiple times for stealing luggage off of conveyor belts inside airports. And I didn't see the same type of scrutiny that the Democrats used on these individuals' picks. There's been a lot of picks. I mean, we can talk about Pete Buttigieg. Is he really qualified to be Department of Transportation?
Yes, exactly. You Democrats, as someone who am willing to support this administration, I get to complain. You people can shut up. You allowed Rachel Levine in charge of the Assistant Secretary of Health and Human Services. Look, I will object till I'm blue in the face over Robert Kennedy because he's a progressive, gun-grabbing, pro-abortionist nut job. You people should like it. In fact, y'all wanted him at the EPA. Rachel Levine and his war on gender, 75% of Americans favor a federal ban on gender transitions for minors, and this dude was encouraging them. And in fact, we know from leaks at HHS, suppressed data because he was afraid it would build further outrage about gender transitions for minors. And y'all didn't say anything. Anthony Blinken is perhaps the worst Secretary of State this country has seen in generations. And you people on the left just think he is all golly fantastic. Lloyd Gates, the Secretary of Defense, disappeared from his job without telling anyone, and none of you even wanted him held accountable. You're going to be upset with Pete Hegseth? Yeah, he's got some issues, personal baggage. But the Associated Press has decided the attack on Pete Hegseth is because he has a Jerusalem cross tattoo, which is a cross that a lot of pilgrims, Christian pilgrims who go to Jerusalem, get. Yes, it is allegedly derived from the Crusades, but it doesn't matter. The fact that he was labeled a right-wing extremist by people inside the Defense Department who serve with him in combat is actually a big red flag on those people. In fact, if he becomes Secretary of Defense, he should pull the file, find the people who complained about it, and fire any of those who are still in the Department of Defense. The fact that they looked at a guy with a Jerusalem cross and said he might be a right-wing extremist because of that tattoo, that a lot of people I know a number of people who are far from right-wing extremists who have that same tattoo. They happen to be Catholics. They happen to have made pilgrimages to the Holy Land, and they got that tattoo. And they're not right-wing extremists, I assure you. In fact, I know a couple of them who didn't even vote for Trump. But that's what the media is doing. The hysteria over his cabinet picks is absurd. As a conservative, as someone who supports the administration, I get the right to raise red flags and say this isn't good. But you people in the press who are outraged by cabinet picks, you didn't say a damn thing about Pete Buttigieg. That man was no more qualified to be Secretary of Transportation than Thomas the Train is to be Secretary of Agriculture. Pete Buttigieg went on paternity leave and no one noticed. In fact, it was well documented, except in the mainstream media, that when Pete Buttigieg decided to go on paternity leave, he actually went on tour because some left-wing group did a hagiographic documentary about how awesome Pete Buttigieg is, and Buttigieg traveled the country with the documentary. That's why he was actually on leave, and none of you people in the press wanted to cover it, but you're outraged about Matt Gaetz. I think Matt Gaetz is a horrible human being, and I hope the Senate rejects his nomination. But I get to say that. You people don't. Because you didn't want to raise objections to the qualifications of Pete Buttigieg. And that gets me back to Kathleen Sebelius, who I share some of her concerns about Robert Kennedy Jr. and his, it's not even vaccine skepticism. He's a vaccine contrarian. He's a professional contrarian. If you say the sky is blue, he's going to argue with you just because he likes to be a contrarian. But Kathleen Sebelius sued nuns to force them to pay for abortions. Yes, friends, it was Kathleen Sebelius who oversaw the Little Sisters of the Poor decision. As a Democrat friend of mine at CNN at the time told me, hell hath no fury like a lapsed Catholic against the Catholic Church. And Kathleen Sebelius decided to nurse her grudge against the Catholic Church and sue the nuns. It was her decision, and Barack Obama backed her up. So maybe this woman should shut up when it comes to the qualifications of cabinet nominees for Donald Trump. I got plenty of concerns about Gaetz. I got plenty of concerns against Robert Kennedy. Most of the picks, though, are great. I think Noem's a lightweight at Homeland Security, but she's not like completely disqualified. Rubio is fantastic for Secretary of State. Hexeth, I think, will be great for Secretary of Defense. I kind of think Elon Musk is right when it comes to Lutnick for Treasury Secretary over the other guy. I forget the other guy's name, but Lutnick, I think, would be great. That's who Elon Musk wants. Mike Huckabee, ambassador to Israel, a great pick. Kennedy is a terrible pick, and Gates is a terrible pick. And I hope the Senate rejects them both if they both survive the process. But for the American media to lecture anyone on the competence or qualifications of Trump's picks, and by the way, this goes back to the overarching concern of why there's so much distrust over the media right now. One of the major reasons for distrust of the American media right now is because they've picked a side and everybody knows it. Rick Wilson, the former GOP strategist with the Lincoln Project, is out saying, oh, yeah, the Republicans rough the rest because there's media bias for the GOP. Listen, God bless the man for telling Democrats what they want to hear. They want to hear that there's bias, but the bias is so documented against the right. The worldview of the media is against the right. The hysterical nonsense from people in the media. When you go in as a Republican on television, you're never given the benefit of the doubt, and everything a Democrat says is always given the benefit of the doubt. And these same reporters are proving it yet again because every story must have a Trump angle. And every time they question one of Trump's cabinet picks, I look at them and say, you never questioned Sam Brinton or whatever his name was, Mark Wayne Mullen pointed out was stealing women's luggage. He was in the energy department. You never questioned Rachel Levine. Oh my gosh, it's progress. A trans woman, it's progress. Dude looked like a lady, still a dude, tried to undermine American health care. Lloyd Gates, AWOL, on the job repeatedly. No one knows where the chain of command is. Media complete. Give it a guess. No accountability. No firings over Afghanistan. The media gave it all a pass. All the time, gave it a pass. And now they're like, oh, my gosh, they might have Matt Gaetz. And part of me wants Gaetz there just to make them all mad and force everybody to quit. I think he'd be a terrible attorney general. And actually, the deep state would be smart enough to go around a guy like Gaetz. So you wouldn't actually get rid of the deep state. But a lot of people would be furious. It's kind of what I said about this whole election. That there was a part of me that just thought, the future for the conservative movement could be undermined by a bad midterm election if Trump is president. But you know what? It's worth it because all the people who need to have a coronary will, all the people who need to flee the country will. Donald Trump getting elected just cleans up the country because all those progressive activists who said we'll leave the country, they either will or they'll be exposed as frauds and hypocrites. You and I get to complain about this stuff, you realize? But the people who have been antagonistic the entire time and gave Joe Biden's cabinet such a pass, the people who fawned over Pete Buttigieg, who is incompetent as a Department of Transportation secretary, that can't even get the ports reopened. He goes on paternity leave and no one even knows he's gone until like 3 or 4 months later. You guys in the press can shut up. I know you're not going to. But trust is gone. If you weren't willing to call out Anthony Blinken, who is a moron and incompetent in his handling of Iran and Israel, you don't get to call out Pete Hegseth. I know you think you can try, but your credibility's gone, and your credibility's gone because you gave it up on the throne of protecting your idols, worshiping at the feet of the Democratic Party. I got problems with Trump's cabinet picks. And you know what frustrates me is that I wish there was a fair and balanced media that could raise these red flags, but they can't because they've been so biased the entire time. There's no belief left. There's no trust left. When you scream that everything is racism, nothing is racism. And when the real racists come along, you can't see it. When you scream that everything is a fire and there really is no fire, when the real fire comes, nobody believes you. The media's become the boy who cries wolf. Their energy's tapped out on this stuff. It's predictable that they would be as outraged as they are about these cabinet picks. But you know what? I get to complain about them because I'm willing to support the guy. You guys opposed everything Donald Trump did. You told people he was going to be the end of America. Nobody believes you. Your trust is gone. Yeah, are there some bad picks? There are. But you guys, the only reason you think any of these people are a bad pick is because Trump picked them, and that's why your brains are broken. It's me. Welcome. The phone number, 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program, I would be delighted to have you with me. Now, I must move on, but let's see here. Nope, not going to take that. Okay. All right. We got other stuff we got to talk about. I need to bring you up to speed on what has happened with Seth Moulton. Okay, I forget the British lady who said it months ago. It was a researcher in Great Britain who said that the parents who allow their children to undergo gender transitions are going to be like the Japanese on the islands of the Pacific after World War II who can't accept the war is over and fight to the death. Because if you've allowed your son to remove his reproductive organs or daughter to physically, permanently disfigure themselves, you're not going to be able to say you were wrong. What we're seeing as well is that upper income, wealthy white people are the most committed to the delusion. So Seth Moulton, a Democratic congressman, after the election says a very reasonable, non-controversial statement that 70+% of Americans agree with, that boys should not be in girl sports. And what is the reaction? They organize a quote-unquote Neighbors Against Hate rally outside his office to protest him. And then Democratic voices fill MSNBC to worry about throwing the transgender community under the bus. Jen Psaki and others all telling Democrats, you can't back away from this. So Seth Moulton stakes out a position that over 70% of Americans agree with, 80% of Americans actually. It's 75% oppose gender transitions for minors, 80% oppose boys and girls sports. So Seth Moulton says something 80% of Americans agree with. CBS News calls it controversial, and good white Democrats hold a protest outside his office. Who are the people out of touch? Now, I didn't have to use it this week when I took the Eden Pure Thunderstorm with me, and the new one is actually smaller than the old one and actually does more. They're incredible. You can get 3 Eden Pure Thunderstorms and save $200 at EdenPureDeals.com with the discount code ERICK, E-R-I-C-K. EdenPureDeals.com, the discount code ERICK3, E-R-I-C-K, the number 3. The Eden Pure Thunderstorm, the new ones, the thunderstorms, they now generate plasma to kill bacteria and viruses, in addition to generating the ozone to kill all odors. In addition to having an electrostatic plate that traps dust, pet dander, pollen that flows through, you don't need a filter subscription with it, and it just works. It works great. You can get 3 of them, take care of your whole house, upstairs, downstairs, your basement, your travel bag. You can hold it in your hand. The new one's even smaller than the last one. It has a plug that flips out so you can put it in the wall. Just like the old one, though, you can also plug it up with USB in your car if you need to, and it will eliminate every odor, in addition to viruses and bacteria floating in the air. EdenPureDeals.com, the discount code ERICK3, E-R-I-C-K3, at EdenPureDeals.com. Hi there, welcome. It is Eric Erickson here. Delighted to have you with me. The phone number, 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program, it would be fantastic to have you. At the end of the day, it still comes down to the economy. For Republicans, I need you to process what I'm about to tell you. It's very important. Do not think that this election outcome was more than what it actually was. Just the problem that the Democrats made in 2020 is they didn't just view the election as a rejection of Donald Trump, but as an affirmation of their worldview and the way they wanted to do things. And it never was. It was all about Trump. In the same way, this election was about rejecting Joe Biden and the Democrats more than it was an affirmation of a lot of the Trump agenda. And so here's what I'm telling you. If you want to expand and extend the Trump agenda, and you want Americans to embrace Donald Trump's ideas across the board, you got to get the basics right. See, Joe Biden could have been more transformational. He wasn't really that I know the media likes to say he's most successful, most accomplished, whatever. Not really. A lot of what he did is going to be undone by executive order and the rest through reconciliation. He will be a footnote in American history. Joe Biden will. But Joe Biden and the Democrats, they couldn't fundamentally transform everything the way they wanted because they couldn't get the basics right. He broke the economy. And then there's the Afghan withdrawal. That was the moment that broke everything. The man who ran on empathy had none. Nick Timiraos at the Wall Street Journal has a piece today, the headline, How Democrats Blew It on Inflation. President Biden hadn't even been inaugurated when he and his senior advisors made a monumental gamble in January 2021 that would reverberate through the presidency. Fresh on the heels of a $900 billion COVID relief bill that Congress had approved weeks earlier, Biden proposed a $1.9 trillion stimulus bill. Biden and many of those advisors had been part of the Obama administration. Barack Obama took office under similarly gloomy circumstances in January 2009 during the low point of the global financial crisis. Years of high unemployment followed, with much of the world mired in a trap of low growth and very low, even negative interest rates. One lesson Democrats took from that episode: spend aggressively when interest rates are low. It's better to overfill the cup than underfill it. The result was the American Rescue Plan, a package that boosted a child tax credit, sent $1,400 per person direct payments to households, and directed $350 billion to state and local governments. Politically, those choices backfired. Billions of dollars in COVID-19 aid were already coursing through the economy. The after effect of bipartisan spending under Donald Trump. Strong demand from Biden's additional fiscal stimulus, ultra-low interest rates, and a successful vaccine rollout ran headlong into crippled supply chains and discombobulated labor markets. Bad luck piled on. New COVID variants, Russia's invasion of Ukraine, China's COVID-related lockdowns continued to upend global supply chains and commodity markets. Inflation soared in most of the world's richest economies across Europe, Canada, and Australia. Democrats had bet voters would reward them for a strong labor market recovery with tangible gains for workers. Instead, the voters recoiled at the sudden cost of living increases. Consumer prices during Biden's term have risen 20% compared with 8% during Trump's term. If inflation had been less severe in that first year, if it had peaked at a lower level, could Vice President Harris have survived that? My intuition is yes, Michael Strain said, head of economic policy studies at the right-leaning American Enterprise Institute. On Election Day, roughly 40% of voters said the economy was their top issue, far outstripping any other. Those voters backed Trump by a 22% point margin. The Democrats, they overreached, they overspent, they overdid. They didn't listen to their own advisors. And here's part of the problem. This is a larger point that extends beyond the Democrats. This applies to lots of life. There are people who can't accept that we have the answers. There are people who can't accept we have the answers. We know how to do things. We know what works. We know the tried and true. We have the democracy of the dead. The democracy of the dead is G.K. Chesterton's phrase that we should not ignore the dead. We should not ignore the decisions of the dead. The way our society is ordered is often through a failure over time where we fix the mistakes. The two-parent nuclear household as the best way to raise kids. It's not something that just sprung up wholesale. It's something that society over and over and over again struggled with how to do it until we landed on, you know what? Moms and dads do a great job of raising their kids. Leave it to them, not the state. We've ordered society in these ways. And a lot of people, and it's not just on the left, there are some people on the right, it goes down the Robert Kennedy Jr. rabbit hole. There's like, we don't know how to do things. We need new answers. All of the wisdom that will ever be already has been. All the wisdom that will ever be has been. We have all the wisdom. There's no new wisdom coming. And the way we process the old wisdom is we apply it to new things, but many new things aren't really new things. There's really nothing new under the sun. The genius of the wise is to see how the new thing is just a repackaging of the old thing. So the Democrats decided, well, who cares about old economics? These are new times, super low interest rates, roaring economies. Let's have modern monetary theory, and we will posit that we're never going to have inflation again, and so we can spend as much money as we want. And if we do happen to have inflation, we'll just raise taxes. That's modern monetary theory in a nutshell. They'll say I'm mocking it. They'll say I'm not being accurate, but I'm being accurate. That's what it is. Modern monetary theory is there's no such thing as inflation anymore. The world has moved on from the old economic rules, and guess what? The Democrats decided to embrace it because it was new and shiny. And look what happened. The old rules still apply. The right risks that with tariffs now. We all know how tariffs work. Tariffs raise the cost of the good to you. The countries on whom the tariffs are imposed don't pay the tax. You do. We don't need tried and true new things, or non-tried and not tried new things. We need the tried and the true. We need the old things. Just apply them to the new, because the new is just a repackaging of the old, and wisdom cuts through that. The Democrats wrecked the economy because they decided that we were in some new period in time where the old rules didn't apply. The old rules applied more than they thought. And they lost because of it. The right, and Trump supporters in particular, as we move forward looking at the electoral outcome, need to be real careful before they decide to go with the new and the shiny as opposed to the tried and the true. Because the new and the shiny oftentimes isn't. It's just something old that's been placed on the ash heap of history and someone's resurrected it, given it some Botox, cleaned it up a little bit, given it a bit of a facelift, made it look a little younger, put some makeup on it and said, look, it's new, never been done before. It's the old thing we put on the ash heap of history the last time. Got to be real careful about that. But the bottom line is this. If you want to proceed with the wholesale makeover of American society from the right, like Biden attempted to do as a transformative president, you got to get the basics right. If you can't get the basics right on the economy, on job creation, on national defense and security, if you can't get the basics right, no one's going to trust you to keep power to transform everything else. And that's where Biden and the Democrats completely broke down. They broke the economy, and they lacked the humility to recognize it. They ruined our foreign policy and showed weakness with the withdrawal of Afghanistan, and they lacked the humility to recognize it. Lacking humility is something both parties seem to have in spades these days. Neither one of them very humble. Every side wants to look at an election and say, mandate, and to a degree, I think Trump got one. But what was the mandate? And that's my point. Don't misinterpret it. Don't make it broader than it is. Narrowly confine your mandate to fix the things Joe Biden broke, and then the voters will give you the mandate for more expansive progress in the direction you want. But you got to fix the economy first, and I'm afraid tariffs are actually going to make things worse, so I hope they rethink that. The Democrats lectured Americans about how good they had it, even if they didn't appreciate it. Ruben Gallego is the incoming senator-elect from Arizona. Why? Because Republicans in Arizona decided to commit suicide by nominating Kari Lake again, a terrible candidate who, again, isn't really graciously conceding her race. Everybody can move on from Kari Lake now. But Ruben, the senator-elect, was on with Jake Tapper on CNN.
People were saying that, and I heard that, like, we'll talk to them about how good the economy is. The problem is you can have all the graphs you want. If you open up your checking account and you see that you're making less and there's not enough coming in, it doesn't matter what the GDP growth is, right? If you go to the grocery store, and I live in a fairly working class area, and you start noticing that the brand names are not being bought and generics are, it doesn't matter what unemployment is. And a lot of people got through this inflation, rise in inflation, by also taking out credit card debt. And this is the thing people forgot the whole time, is that even though, yes, wages were getting higher, yes, costs were going down, people were still paying down credit card debt that they used basically to survive this whole time. And so one of the things that we were very clear about in this campaign is we said, yes, let's see what we can do. Like, let's figure out what we can do to make your life a little easier, so you can breathe easier, right? Mm-hmm.
So wait, he's saying don't actually lie to people. Don't actually tell them that things are good. This is the wildest thing. This goes back to the Ezra Klein comment from Thursday that I played you guys, that now that the election is over, Democrats are getting really comfortable saying the things they didn't want you to believe before the election. The Democrats are getting really comfortable suddenly speaking the truth. Suddenly saying, hey, maybe it wasn't a good job to tell people their lives were great when they didn't feel it. Been telling them the whole time. None of them wanted to believe me. Now, if you will believe me on Old Glory Bank, please. If you're a business and you don't want to use a woke bank, you want to use a bank that actually has a local touch, even if they're not local, well, that is Old Glory Bank, oldglorybank.com. You can get a business account set up. You can get a personal account set up. I have my personal account there. May need to move my business account there. Old Glory Bank is my bank. I actually have invested in the bank now just because I like them that much. I want to tell you that to let you know this is how much I really like this bank. I was a customer of theirs before they were an advertiser. That matters because I'm not being paid to tell you about this. I would be telling you about Old Glory Bank. Anyway, if you had called me and asked what's a great bank to use, I'd say Old Glory Bank because I literally do use this bank. They have great business checking. In fact, every single business that I have referred to Old Glory Bank, there have now been 5. Every single one of them wound up going with Old Glory Bank because of the hands-on customer service that everybody gets, whether you're a personal or business client. And you're not going to get canceled for being a conservative. They're conservatives. Ben Carson, Larry Elder, John Rich, they're the ones who set up this bank with great conservative bankers. So give them a try. Oldglorybank.com is the website. Oldglorybank.com. You can get your account set up online. I've got a no-fee checking account, and I've got a no-fee savings account with Old Glory Bank. You can move your business accounts there, your personal accounts. Oldglorybank.com. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. Terms and conditions apply. Welcome back. It is Eric Erickson here. I am delighted to have you with me. If you text Eric, E-R-I-C-K, to 33777, you can get the live stream, the show notes, and everything else you could possibly, your heart's desire, have. I got to tell you a very quick story. I have for years, since I was in college, given my sister, this isn't an ad, just bear with me here. I've given my sister Sherry's Berries, the chocolate strawberries. I used to do ads for them. And the very first time they ever asked me to do an ad and I was reading the script, I started gagging. Literally started gagging. My very first big live read on radio, and I started gagging at the description of the product because I passionately hate strawberries. Cannot stand a strawberry. I don't like the smell of a strawberry. I don't like to look at a strawberry. I hate strawberries. My oldest sister, however, loves everything strawberry. Strawberry shortcake, the character, strawberry shortcake, the dessert, strawberry scented shampoo, strawberry everything. And so I always got her Sherry's Berries. And that was the ad. And I had to make it clear. I'm sorry. Well, they wound up actually liking the whole ad. They thought it was very funny. And so for years I did Sherry's Berries. I hate strawberries, and it has gotten to the point where I just tell people, sorry, I'm allergic, no strawberries, because I hate them that much. Well, turns out that Sweden's gender and equity minister is not allergic to bananas, as she claimed. She's scared of bananas. She has a banana phobia. I just despise a strawberry. This woman is actually scared of bananas. Scared of them. She has said in the past, or her team has said, she has a strong allergy to bananas and would appreciate them not being anywhere. It turns out that's not the case. In 2020, she admitted she has a phobia of bananas. It was the world's craziest phobia. She is scared of them. And it's all coming out again after contract demands for her speeches said it was verboten to have bananas anywhere near her. I've never heard of a banana phobia until today. And since I had to hear about it, you guys had to hear about it as well. And there you have it. The gender and equity minister is scared of bananas. Now that's bananas.